episode of Adventures in Welding. I'm Paul. It's -2 degrees on January 10th here in Toronto, Ohio. The heart of winter, I believe. Anyway, I got a question from a viewer on YouTube named Dell, who was unfamiliar with the lay wire technique that I had mentioned. He said he'd been welding for over 30 years and had never heard of it. So today what we're going to look at is, this will be in GTAW TIG welding, the difference between the autogenous, the fusion weld, the lay wire technique, and the dip or dab technique. We'll show you an example of all. And I promise this time we'll have arc shots because I actually put the micro SD in the camera. Let me get my gear on, we'll get set, and we'll be ready to go. Alright, I got my gear on, we're set up and got the Eastwood TIG 200 AC/DC ready to roll. I've got it set for pedal control, 110 amps max. We're not going to use probably any of that. We'll probably use somewhere around 80 to 90 amps. I've got my pre-flow set to 0.4, my post-flow set to 5 seconds. I've got a 3/32 inch tungsten with about a 1/4 inch stick out in an aluminum number 7 cup. It's been sharpened to a point and had the point flat. So the first thing we're going to look at is the autogenous weld or the fusion weld. That's where you join two pieces of metal together without any filler metal added. So basically what we'll do is we'll get our torch, we'll get in position, we'll form the puddle, move along at a steady rate without adding filler material, and that is the fusion technique. This works really good in joining the ends of steel tubes or square tubing, stuff like that. You can make an almost invisible weld. Alright, here we go. This is our fusion. Moving along at a steady pace, trying to keep the puddle the same diameter as we move along, keeping the tip of the electrode as close as possible to the puddle, but trying not to touch it. Now the further we get moving, the more heat is building up in the piece, and the faster we can travel. As you reach the end of the weld, there's nowhere for the heat to go, so you want to back off on your puddle or your pedal a little bit so your puddle doesn't swell too much. And then when you get to the end, slowly taper off, pull back a little, and you shouldn't leave any divots whatsoever. That's our fusion weld. Next, we're going to do the lay wire technique. In that, I'm going to do basically about the same thing, except I'll have the wire and I'll be leaving it in the edge of the puddle as we weld. So first I form the puddle, then I dip the tip of the filler wire metal into it, keeping it right at the edge of the puddle, pushing on it slightly. As we get to the end, we're going to roll off a little, taper out, pull back. And there we've got our lay wire bead. Now for the final technique, I'll use the dip technique. Basically the same motion with my right hand. The difference is going to be with my left hand. This time I'll be feeding the wire into the leading edge of the puddle about 10 to 13 dips per inch. Alright, here we go. Dip, dip, dip.
up, we can move faster. Just keep that funnel size consistent. And as we get towards the end, I'm going to add a little filler, back off, and taper out.
Let's take a look at what we got. Alright, here we are with our pieces. On the bottom we have the autogenous weld. There in the middle we have our lay wire technique. And across the top we have the dip or dab technique. That's about it for today's episode. I hope I'd explained the difference between the three techniques to you. I'll see you again next time.